everyone. I'm Tsering Asha Leba. I'm a senior editor at Abney Magazine, and just wanted to say thanks to Philip for inviting me to moderate this. This is actually my first Tech Thursday as well, so for everyone else who's new, I'm with you. So before we get started, I want to say, you may not need an introduction. The title of this is FinTech Giants, but I think I should give you a chance to do an introduction. So I'll let you guys do quick introductions of yourselves before we get into the meat of it.
Sure. Hi, my name is Kris. I'm one of the co-founders of Neo Financial, and I'm the CTO. Started the company about 5 years ago now, and we've been working tirelessly to bring more competition to the banking industry in Canada. And what else can I say? I'm a long-time Calgarian. I actually moved to the city to go to UC, like maybe many people in the who went to UC here? Oh yeah, I'll see lots of people. So just like all of you, I went to UC. I graduated, believe it or not, and then started working in the software space here in town. I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of companies, big and small. I've had some startups, I've had some wins, I've had some losses, and Neo Financial is sort of the accumulation of like a lot of hard work and learning and failures and occasionally eking out a success as well.
Thank you, Kris. Hello everyone, my name is Diederik. I'm the CTO of Wealthsimple, and thank you so much for inviting me. As you can tell from my accent, I was not born here, so I'll try to be very good in my pronunciation. And my first memory of Calgary was when I lived still back in Holland, which was in 1988. The Winter Olympics. And so I have really fond memories of Eddie the Eagle. Kris he didn't die, still a small miracle. Kris reminded me that also the American bobsleigh team was that year. And so that was my first introduction to Calgary, and now being here is amazing. The vibe and the energy and the people are really, really terrific. So it's been a really amazing time in the last 2 days.
Awesome. Well, I think we've already started this off with your introductions on such a positive note, so it's going to make it really easy to go into the first things that I wanted to talk about. I think, and Philip alluded to this as well, I think there is this misconception in a way about Neo Financial and Wealthsimple being competitors. But Kris and Diederik, we talked last week when we were preparing for this, and I think you both brought up the point that you're not competitors of one another. What you're competing against is this idea of traditional legacy banking and providing something new and different for Canadians. And so I want to keep this first question really broad, but in your roles as CTOs, can you each tell us why do we need organizations like Neo? Why do we need organizations like Wealthsimple in Canada?
Sure, I'll give it a go. For me personally, I think it wasn't until I started traveling that I started really realizing how much Canada needed competition. And if you live in Canada your whole life, I grew up here in Canada, you just get used to it. You just start thinking of the banking system like it's like the government, right? Like death and taxes. You just have to have death and taxes in banking. And you probably bank with your parents' banks. Like I started my first bank account when my mom and dad had their bank accounts. And it wasn't even a decision. That's just like, that's what you did. Then when I started traveling the world, everybody else has better banking than we do. And it didn't matter if it was the United States or over in Europe or really anywhere. The more you travel, the more you realize we're not actually getting a great deal here in Canada. And it's pricing, it's the fees we pay, it's the interest rates we pay, it's the rewards that we get, it's the tech, it's how mobile savvy, or digital savvy these banks are. It's how quickly the banks are responding to a changing environment as well. And frankly, it's not that quick. So, you may remember there was a big pandemic type of thing that happened. And, when there are big things happening in the world, it puts financial pressure on all of us, right? It puts stress on all of us. And I don't think that the sort of 200-year-old companies are all that responsive to helping Canadians when they really need that help, or to changing their products, changing their their viewpoints, changing their features when the world is changing. And so learning all of that really motivated us to start Neo Financial, to actually try and bring some more competition into the space. And I don't really see it as like we have to be the only financial company in Canada. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think any country has just one, winner or something like that in the banking space. But we want to be like a really viable alternative, and we want to show everybody that there's another path and a better path and provide better value. So that's kind of the motivation behind Neo. And a lot of it is tech. As the CTO, I'm really passionate that we have a really great mobile experience or online banking experience. I'm really passionate about things like security. I'm sure you guys read about some company or another company got hacked like every single week in the news. Okay, that can't happen. Canadians deserve better than that. But it's not all tech. Part of it is just sort of, we've all gotten very complacent. And it's going to take a few companies like maybe Neo and Wealthsimple setting a good example to show everybody that better is possible.
Plus one to most what you said, Kris. There was this very interesting article in the Global Mail over the weekend. It was introduced the concept of kayfabe capitalism. You might have read it. And kayfabe is a weird word, but it actually comes from wrestling. And it's the idea that you have these staged rivalries and these staged battles that are completely scripted, but everybody pretends it's real. And so that's very much the situation in Canada. We pretend we have competition, we pretend there's real rivalry, and there really isn't. And it becomes only more apparent, as Kris was mentioning, when you actually start traveling to other countries and you see that things can be different. And so for Wealthsimple, it is really about making things simple and empower Canadians to make the choices and decisions to achieve their own financial independence and economic freedom, right? And so banks don't want that. They thrive by complexity, by making things more difficult than they strictly are. And they make you insecure about your decisions. And so that's what we want to do different. We want to empower people with simple products that are easy to understand, that give you the confidence and reassurance that you're making the right decisions for yourself and for your family. And so Canada needs Neo, Canada needs Wealthsimple, because the country deserves really much more, much better.
And so it sounds like that the common theme here is this idea of service, providing to Canadians the services that they deserve. And in a way, that competition is necessary in order to do that. And that's what Neo and that's what Wealthsimple is providing to a structure, a system that we've had for a very long time, maybe so long that we haven't even noticed that as Canadians we are being underserved. Would that be kind of fair to say?
Yeah, I hope so. And I hope Neo and Wealthsimple can provide that competition and better products and better experiences and better pricing. But I also hope that we put pressure on the existing companies and they actually at some point compete back. And actually everybody wins, right? So like Neo will win, we'll have a really competitive product and we'll have a lot of loyal customers. But I actually want every single Canadian to win by actually introducing competition and actually waking up some of those like sleeping dragons in the industry that are, not really being competitive. And maybe at some point, you can get a more competitive mortgage and own your house sooner, which is a big problem in Canada these days. Or maybe when you invest your money or put money in a savings account, it doesn't matter where you put that money, you get a competitive rate. That would be really nice. I hope that happens.
Got a tiny bit. I think there's also really growing concerns about the economic prosperity of Canadians, right? Rising inflation, rising cost of living, particularly in Ontario, things are a bit dire. And so, like, GDP growth is not amazing, even though the country is growing very rapidly, not everybody is profiting. Like, we're talking about rising the tide, but we need to make sure it not only applies to startups and companies, but also to all the people who live here. And so that's also a really, really important reason to have more competition. Ultimately, that will benefit all Canadians. So, and maybe my final point is that there's also this false belief that they're doing a great job, the banks.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be too spicy, maybe a tiny bit spiciness.
You can be spicy.
Like the TD Bank in AML, fiasco.
It sounds like the crowd likes the spices. Keep going.
Right? Like they were like a bastion of stability, and look what happened. They got really severe AML violation fines, like really severe. And so this idea that the banks know better and the banks are more trustworthy, we should question that. And I think startups like Neo, like Wealthsimple, we care as much, I would say we probably care even more about our customers and putting them first. And so we will do the most to get their trust and protect their trust. So we have to really value it. And all of us here in the audience, you can contribute, right? Like ultimately you vote, right? How do you spend your money? Where do you use it, right? So you can be part of the solution.
And it kind of, that brings us to an interesting point too, like talking about Neo and talking about Wealthsimple. So Wealthsimple just is celebrating its 10-year anniversary this year. Neo, I think maybe like five years now. And I think like pointing out the longevity of both of your companies is important because it alludes to the idea of stability. So how we're talking about competition, startups, coming up against traditions and structures that aren't serving us anymore, it's important to make a note that your companies are still here. You are still doing what you're doing. And I'm wondering if you can each maybe talk a little bit about the importance of that and some of the things that maybe you think have helped you remain stable so far.
Yeah, I can try. It hasn't been easy, to be honest, with everyone in the audience. I think, imagine you want to start a company, and then you decide, hey, how about I start a company out of my house, out of my basement with my friends. We're going to take on the largest companies in the country. That's probably the most intimidating proposition you could possibly have. And in an environment, Canada is one of the most heavily regulated environments in the entire world. So you have every single regulation, like honestly way too many regulations probably, that are actually designed to keep competition out. You're gonna have to overcome all of those legal barriers and regulatory barriers. Not to mention that, despite I think Canada's big banks being a bit complacent, they have had 200 years to build products. And they have built some products in those hundreds of years. And so we like both Neo and Wealthsimple, we have a lot of stuff to build. So it's definitely been really hard to go from zero to where we are now, whether I think it's 5 years or 10 years. There's a lot of challenges along the way. And I won't speak to Wealthsimple, but I think for Neo, things that have really helped us. One is actually the city of Calgary and the government here in Alberta are really supportive. It's a really supportive place to start a tech company. And we've gotten a lot of support from the community that's actually kept us afloat and kept us positive and kept us going. And not every city, not every province has the level of support that we get here in Alberta. So sort of that Alberta, I don't want to use the term Alberta advantage, that's like sort of the oil and gas term maybe, I don't know, but there is a bit of like an Alberta advantage that has certainly helped us build up our company and keep it really healthy and stable. Other than that, Neo, we came to market with this idea that we could work with a lot of sort of small businesses, local businesses, even medium-sized businesses. But if you know Neo, you know our products, you know that our credit card partners with something like 12,000 small and local businesses to offer rewards. And it's that grassroots idea, right? That giant corporations will always have a ton of money, but people always also have a local community. They always, support the underdog. They always support the small guy. They always support their neighbor. And I think we had the fortune of kind of having that good strategy at a good time, and bringing out Neo in a way that that could really connect with what we kind of believe in. Getting away from sort of like a really corporate shopping mentality and more to, you're going to go to your favorite lunch spot or your favorite restaurant or your favorite cafe or that store on the corner in Inglewood that sells jeans that nobody else has. And that's the kind of support that has really kept Neo top of mind for consumers and helped us grow.
For Wealthsimple, I think it's really our belief that we can be better than a bank. And so that means we build products that our customers love. That is really like our center, where we start from. It's very deeply embedded in our DNA as a company. Truly listening to what your customers want and need, and turn those wishes into simple products. And I think that's been sort of the magic sauce in a way that has propelled us 10 years further and being as big as we are. And for example, like last night, we flew a premium and innovation client event. We do it a little bit in Toronto and in Montreal as well. And it's really amazing to me that those events are always sold out. They're invite only, so you don't have to pay, but they're invite only. And they're always fully booked, and there's waiting lists. And I think it really speaks to that not only do we build simple products, but we also are very human-centric. So we are personable. And so people really, whether you're a customer or not, I believe that most Canadians are actually rooting for Wealthsimple. And it shows at an event like that where so many people just come. Can you imagine yourself attending an invitation from Scotia or like, I don't, but with us it's always fully booked. And so those are the keys to your question. Simple products that people love and being very human-centric so people can relate to you. So they know and that we have the best interest for them. I think those are the two main ingredients.
So, it does sound like there are so many similarities then between Neo and Wealthsimple, between this approach. You're saying human-centric, you're saying approach to community. It kind of all relates back to the same thing as, getting to people, to the heart of what people want, even if you're saying it in different ways. And I think that's really important to point out because, this conversation is unique because we're talking about Canada. Neo Financial, you're from Calgary, you're located in Calgary, but Wealthsimple is in Ontario. But a lot of conversations about FinTech, they can often be very insular or regional, depending on what city you're in. We really have this special opportunity to talk about Canada as a whole. And you've talked a lot about the similarities between the two of you, but I guess you've both talked a lot about product as well, and kind of, in that area, so we can get a little technical too. You both hold CTO titles, but maybe you can each kind of give us a little bit of a rundown, what you do on the daily, some of the people you work with, maybe some of the challenges that you do in your roles specifically, because they might not be exactly the same.
I'm sure they're different. A 10-year company, 5-year company, different stages. I think Wealthsimple has way more employees than we do. There's a lot of my team in the audience, so if I don't say this true, they're going to also call me out on it. How do I spend a lot of my time? I spend a lot of my time actually on talent, on hiring, on making sure we have the best team, making sure that we continue to coach and grow people. And I think it takes a team to really build a winning product. So as the CTO, if I just sort of think about the tech all day long and don't think about the people and don't think about the team around me, I won't have that big of an impact. In the earliest days of Neo, when we first kind of started, I definitely had to kind of set some of the technical direction and things like that. But my focus is really having the best tech team that works well together, making sure everybody grows, making sure everybody's happy, making sure everybody's productive. And that's where I spend a huge amount of my time. At Neo, we do, I guess probably Wealthsimple too, but we do have to work through a lot of regulatory challenges. Cybersecurity is a really big deal. So I do spend a lot of my time on things like cybersecurity, on things like making sure that we have best customer privacy in mind, making sure that we're not just building something cool. A lot of my team have amazing ideas. A lot of the developers and product managers in Neo, for example, have mind-blowing ideas. But if it's not legal, we can't build it. Or if there's going to be a cybersecurity challenge, if it's not going to be secure, we can't build it. So part of my job is kind of making sure that we stay focused, we stay on the rails, we stay safe. We work with the legal team, we work with the compliance team, and all the other teams that are needed to kind of make make a great product. So yeah, that's how I spend, I think most of my time, probably leaving out the million other things, the distractions that happen day to day, but I think, yeah, that's a lot of my focus.
And just before too, just like in terms of challenges as well, like for a CTO specifically, like what could you tell us about some of the biggest challenges that you might face in that role? It sounds like one of them is big ideas and making sure that they're legal.
Yeah, I think it's staying focused when you have a million ideas. That's challenging. It's making sure that you don't take on too much. Again, we have more ideas than humans. So, we have to be really disciplined in building things like a great product roadmap or prioritizing, right? Those are really hard challenges. We're honestly really lucky. We have like absolutely brilliant engineers. And I think some CTOs, they would maybe stand up on a stage and say, yeah, I have to tell them like, use this technology, use that technology, adopt this best practice, adopt that best practice. But we have so many smart people at Neo that they make all those, make some of the best decisions in the world. We have, I think, one of the best banking platforms in the world, some of the best tech in the world. So they don't need me for that. They do need me to help. Again, keep us on track, build up the team, and I think make sure that I'm imagining a future team that can meet the needs of tomorrow while they build for the needs of today. And when you're growing a startup company, you sort of have to predict the future. Okay, what does the company need in a year? What does the market need in a year? What does my team need in a year? And nothing's going to look the same a year from now. So a lot of my time is maybe kind of playing defense against the future and trying to imagine, okay, if today's team isn't going to be the exact right team, or today's tech is not going to be the exact right tech, how do we get prepared for that future? Hope that makes sense and I don't sound crazy. One of my guys is nodding, so I must sound the same.
That was a great quote. Meeting the needs of now, building for the future. That should be on a mug or something. That was good. You're up.
Plus one to the talent. Super, super important and never ending. I think there's a lot of different definitions floating around about what a CTO is supposed to be doing. I think in cases like fintechs, we are not actually software companies. Right? A software company is a company that sells software as a primary product. We use software to deliver financial products. And that's, I think, a crucial distinction because it means one of my most important things is to be the bridge between the business strategy and the technology strategy. Like, how can we make sure that we empower the business to realize what they want to do? And this means I work extraordinarily close with my product counterparts. This ties back to what I mentioned earlier on about building product and building products that people love. It's deeply ingrained in our DNA. That means I'm daily working with our product counterparts, envisioning and building products that our customers love. So product velocity, speed at which we develop, is a core concern for me, right? Because, as Kris mentioned, the banks that have 200 years to build things, and we are 5 years, 10 years old, so we have a lot to build still. And so, how can we build fast while staying within the guardrails of the regulatory environment and all those considerations, and keep our pace? Because we think that's an unfair advantage that we have. Banks will have a very hard time countering. So being the bridge from the business strategy to the technology strategy is a major concern, major responsibility for me. Focusing on product velocity and talent are the two main buckets, how I spend my time. And then there's a long tail of other very important things that happen every single day, but it's really like it comes by the day. But I think those are the key responsibilities.
Can I do a +1 too?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to +1 him for a change instead of being plus. I think kind of keeping the pace, keeping the culture, that's a really brilliant thing, and something that I think founders in Neo, and that includes me, we do spend a lot of time on. It's really easy to get slower and slower and slower, honestly. The more people you hire, the more complicated your software gets, the more complicated your business gets, you can just get slower. And it's easy to go from having a really driven culture, passionate startup people, to kind of become more like the culture that we're trying to compete against, right? And that's not going to work. If we have the culture of kind of a lazier, slower to market, more, not in a rush company, then Canadians are never going to get the products and the competition that they need. So yeah, a lot of what I do, it sounds like a lot of what you do, is keeping that speed and that culture alive. And there's no one way to do it. It's like a lot of little things that you do to keep people motivated and to keep that culture from kind of slipping into sort of more like a corporate,
corporate
culture where you're not allowed to say.
Maybe I can add one more to you now. So, in the spirit of the conversation, right? Jeff Bezos said, like, good intentions don't get you there. You need a strong mechanism to get anything done. And I think that's a really insightful quote. And so, to keep the pace, we talk often about ship it, right? Like, but we also realized that actually you need the opposite. And so we built a whole mechanism, a muscle that we call unship it. And it's really about celebrating things that are deleted and are no longer needed. And it can be code, it can be, but it can also be process, right? So, because organizations, they get dusty and so to actually keep going fast, you actively, deliberately need to unship things so you stay nimble, stay simple internally, right? So this has to do with your mission of building simple products. You can only build simple products if you're yourself internally are simple as well, right? So you need to mirror that. So unshipping has been a very strong mechanism for us to sort of like keep the pace up.
You're like the CTO of Marie Kondo, just like decluttering all the things that you don't need anymore, just getting rid of it all, the unshipping.
I know. My wife, I'm just thinking my wife right now. So she taught me my daughters how to roll their clothes.
Oh, to find joy. To find joy in cleaning up.
Unship the mess in your kids' room.
Yeah.
So another question, I guess, just considering the audience that we have today, a lot of people here, like Kris said, a lot of people are from Neo. We've got a lot of folks from Wealthsimple. People here today are, either in tech, want to be in tech, or maybe in roles that are similar. So I think it would be interesting to hear about your path towards being a CTO. I'm kind of curious, was it very linear for either of you?
I would say I was very young. The first time I was a CTO, I was in my mid-20s, and I had no business being a CTO. I'll admit it now. I'm a lot older. I'm a little bit wiser. I think at the time, it's more the brashness of youth, the overconfidence. I was an okay software developer. I thought I can do what a CTO does. It's gonna be easy. So for me, I got into it early, and then I had a series of startup companies and a series of roles, and it got easier each time, right? So my first role, I would say, I was the worst CTO I've ever met, probably. And then I got better, and I got better, and I got better, and I got a little bit better. And after doing more roles, getting more experience, having more mentorship, and really learning about myself, my own weaknesses, it's something I just worked on for many, many years, and I don't even know if I'm good now. I hope so. I hope I'm a good CTO. I don't think I'll ever think I'm the best. It's just a lifelong, challenge. And sometimes people ask me, hey, why did you, partner up with your co-founders and start Neo? And there's definitely the passion for introducing competition in Canada. We talked about that, but the real personal reason I did it is I don't want to be bored. I don't want a boring job. I don't want to have a job that's easy. I don't want to wake up in the morning and lay there in bed and think will anyone notice if I stay home from work today? Or if I don't log in or something, does it make a difference? I really don't want that. So one of the biggest drivers for me through my whole career and why I still work on being a CTO is it's a really hard thing to do. And I'd rather fail a bunch of times and learn from my mistakes and get better and better and better at it and spend my whole life doing it than be bored in a job where I kind of master it or something, and then I just kind of keep doing it. And I think that's kind of the startup spirit too. It's why a lot of people start startup companies. Like they know it's going to be almost impossible to get a startup going, but it's the challenge and the excitement that makes it worthwhile. So that's kind of been my path. It's just sort of been a stumbling, winding journey through a lot of local Calgary startups. And some have been really good. A couple of them have sold, and maybe there's some people in the audience who work for those companies, and I hope I didn't leave them all flaming, pile or something like that. I hope I had a good effect on a lot of companies. But yeah, it's just a lifelong journey.
So I fell in love with the internet. I'm going to really date myself now. Back in 94, right? Like Mosaic was just released. It was before Netscape. You had to use a modem, right? And you dial in. And I was so good I could tell by the sounds that it was going to connect or not. Right? And I would devour wired magazines, right? Like I would like read them like literally top to front, not the back to front, multiple times over. But I was this little kid, I was just 15, 16 probably, in a pretty ordinary town in Holland. And so it seemed easier to me to fly to the moon than to go to Silicon Valley. Right? It felt like that's so far away. That it's like I don't even can envision a path there. But so I didn't go on a journey, right? Because it was just impossible. But then you just start living your life, right? You just do things as opportunities present themselves, and you get used to like saying yes to things that are uncomfortable. I think that's maybe the things that you're mentioning as well. And so, over time, I ended up in Canada because I said yes to opportunities that presented themselves that I didn't anticipate, right? And so, I think it's really about the only lesson you can learn from me, I would say, is like honestly, nothing else. It's about saying yes to those things that seem insanely scary, and that you're like, oh, this is not good, but you're gonna be fine. And even if you're not, that's not the worst thing either. You will bounce back even if it doesn't work out. So that's, I think, the only lesson I think I can offer is seize the opportunity, grab it by both hands, and it will be okay. And that's really like, and I can tell you which places I went, but there's nothing to learn from that. Everybody's route is going to be so unique and so personal that it's hard to like learn from that. But the principle of saying yes to craziness is maybe a lesson. Use it with judgment.
It kind of sounds, it's something that I hear often when talking about tech companies, startup companies, companies in innovation, this idea that getting to where you want to go doesn't have to be linear. A lot of it is saying yes to new opportunities and trying new things. And Kris, you might know this too. I mean, you will know this, but like that's a huge topic here in Calgary. Just tech talent in particular, people switching from whether it's oil and gas or construction or the arts and going into tech and boot camps springing up and having a workforce here. And so I like there's a lot of similarity in the messages that you're both talking about your journey to becoming CTOs.
And so speaking about Calgary, my dad was in the oil and gas industry, right? So when I was young, he was working in oil and gas, and then when I went to the UC and I graduated, most of my friends went into the oil and gas industry. And honestly, for like a decade at least, they were all more successful than me, quite a lot more successful, because they were making that oil and gas money and they were having that oil and gas career path, and it was pretty safe. It was just like, take that job that maybe your same job your parents had, honestly, for some people. And we weren't taking a huge risk joining like one of the leading oil companies in the world during the oil boom. That was like not a risky move. Meanwhile, there's me like avoiding the oil and gas boom, working for some dirt poor startup company out of like a co-working space or something like that. And so yeah, taking these risks and saying yes to things that it wasn't a guarantee. nothing's a guarantee, but you find over time, yeah, you learn a lot of lessons that maybe you don't learn if you just always take that safe path, and more opportunities open up over time. And I think that's one of the ways I kind of fell into being, a CTO, was like you said, saying yes to things that sometimes were a little bit crazy, sometimes didn't really make logical sense. I did it because I wanted it was going to be fun, it was going to be exciting, it was scary, it was challenging, maybe a bit like a gamble, but gambling can be fun. So you take some risks like that, and then you see, again, the paths that open up are very different from what will happen if you just make conservative decisions. I've heard from a lot of people actually in Neo too, who've actually moved to Canada to live in Canada or move to Calgary to live in Calgary, and they've all taken risks to do that too. And I think that's an amazing attitude to have, like not being afraid to upend yourself or your family, move to another country. That's pretty scary, and if you can get through that, you can get through a startup company. There's a lot of synergy, I think, between people who are immigrating to Canada and taking that chance, and people who start up startup companies too.
Did you want to add anything in terms of Wealthsimple? Because even though you're not based in Calgary, I know that Wealthsimple wants to grow here as well. And this idea of the Calgary tech community and tech talent, if you wanted to add any other thoughts too. I did kind of put you on the spot there.
Well, we are very excited about Calgary and Alberta, but I think we're also open-minded and want to learn. So yes, we are going to be hiring more. We're going to triple our number of employees in the state of Alberta, right? But I think it's really, we'll do it in an organic way, and we'll be listening, because that goes back to how we build products, right? We have to listen to our customers. We also want to listen to people of Alberta and make sure that we do that in a way that resonates. It's genuine to people. So, but yeah, we are going to be hiring. It's good.
Very exciting. I think, am I good for time still?
Yeah, good for time.
Okay, awesome. So I think we have time for audience Q&A, but before we get to that, I think we have time for one more question from me. And it's just kind of an overarching question, just from your perspectives here, just talking about the future of FinTech in Canada. Your thoughts, whether they are positive, negative, predictions, what do you want to leave the audience with today?
I think what's happening is there's a lot of media coverage of things like, we're talking about this TD incident. It's not the first thing. There have been Equifax privacy breaches, and there have been, I think one of the big banks was like offline for like 3 days, and nobody could get their money for like 3 days. I think that happened last year. I think it's sort of a matter of time as Neo and Wealthsimple continue to build better and better products. We're going to get featured more and more in a positive light. More and more people will try Neo, or they'll try Wealthsimple, or they'll try them both, and then they'll tell their friends, and then they'll tell their friends, and they'll tell their friends, and again, meanwhile, I think there'll be more and more stumbles from some of the bigger players in Canada. And I think there's just an inevitable, but probably somewhat gradual shift towards fintech companies. I also think younger people are way more inclined to work with fintech companies. I'm sure Wealthsimple's seen that, Neo's seen that. If you grew up with an iPad in your hand, you are very digitally savvy. Whereas like my grandma, I went to visit her last weekend for Thanksgiving, and like she still doesn't really know what I do. Like I think banking online is pretty scary, right, for her. And I think over time we just have this new generation of Canadians thinking, hey, why shouldn't I adopt a digital bank or a fintech company? Versus sort of it being a scary proposition to them, right? And so, yeah, I think fintech's going to be very successful in Canada. We're going to follow in the footsteps of a lot of other countries that have had huge fintech successes and huge challenger bank successes. If you don't believe it, look around the world. It happens everywhere. So we're just sort of part of the trend here in Canada. And that's really reassuring to me. All I gotta do is work really hard on building those cool features, and making sure my team's happy, making sure we're making progress every year. And I think the world is always evolving, always changing, and Neo is just positioning itself to be part of that change.
Yeah, I'm very bullish on fintechs in general, and particularly in Canada. As Kris was mentioning, like if you go to other countries, you can see the future a little bit already. Like the future is only needed to do it, and in this particular case, Canada is lagging. And so I think it's very important though that don't just look at us, at me, Kris, and try to fix it. Like you're part of the solution, right? Like your choices actually make us successful or not, ultimately, right? And so I think we can do an amazing job. I also think that people want to be more in control of their finances. I think it's you want to be in charge of your life, and being in charge of your money is a necessary condition, being in charge of your life. So we're trying to connect you guys through motivation. And so I'm very bullish because I think those motivations are true for everyone. And then there's a lot of technical things that can happen. We get very excited about open banking and do more really awesome stuff. But ultimately, I think it's up to all of us to change the Canadian financial industry.
Yeah, and I do want to echo that sentiment of like be part of the solution. I'll tell a little story. When we first launched our first product at Neo, I remember we had a pretty small development team, and for that first week, we were watching like the App Store reviews like every hour, right? So we're looking on like the Apple App Store, and somebody would post like 1-star review, and they'd be like, missing this one feature, absolute trash. And we're like, we just launched this like last weekend. Like, obviously we don't have every single feature, right? Like, we worked on it for like months, not years and years and years and years and years and years. So like, at the time, it was partly disheartening, but at the same time, it's like, great, let's build that feature. Let's build that feature. Somebody gave us a 1-star review, we'll fix it. So we built the next feature. And then, you know what? We still got another 1-star review from somebody who was missing another feature. And then we built that feature. And what we've shown is that we have a relentless pursuit of becoming the best. I'm not sure Neo is the best today. I hope we're really good. I think we've been working really hard, but we will become the best, right? If we keep that trend going and keep responding to what our customers want, building more stuff, and doing more work, we're absolutely going to be the best. And what I would encourage is, if you believe that Neo can do it, or you believe that Wealthsimple can do it, and you believe that whether or not you think we're the best today, maybe support us along our journey, because we're going to definitely get there, right? And it's just a matter of time before we have the best platforms, the best technology, the best customer support, the best experience, the best of everything, because our teams are working really, really relentlessly, and they're really listening, and they're really trying super hard to get there. But it takes time. It takes a few years to catch up with every other product in every other country and every other experience that's out there. I'm really proud of what we've done so far. 5 years in, we'll see you in 5 more years. When we hit our 10-year anniversary, where Neo products are at. I think they'll be amazing.
Do you have anything to add, or?
No.
Okay, I think it's probably time to go to audience questions. I think I went over a little bit, so I see a hand right there that just went up, and then I think you're next. Do you want to?
Okay, I'm too short to jump up and down in this chair. I'm just swinging my legs here.
Thank you so much for the amazing panel. My question is, now that both Wealthsimple and Neo are scaling, how would you balance these rapid technological advancement with your customer trust, maintaining your customer trust, specifically for the platform that you're using, and what strategies are you learning to be useful to basically not these technological advancements come at the cost of your user experience, your customer satisfaction?
Yeah, it's actually really hard to earn trust. And sometimes it feels like the faster we push the features out, then maybe we do lose people's trust. They're like, these guys are moving so fast, the technology is changing so much. Is this as trustworthy as this sort of old, trusty, stable system where they haven't released a new feature in 5 years? Maybe that one seems more trustworthy because it's so proven and stable, right? And we've tried a lot of things new. We're going to keep trying more things to earn customer trust. But some of the things we've tried and we continue to work on, it is a really regulated environment here in Canada. You've all heard that maybe U.S. banks have failed. Like Silicon Valley, who knows about Silicon Valley Bank? Yes, people do, right? That bank failed. Canada is not an environment where the government and the regulatory bodies go easy on fintechs or on banks. And so they're keeping us really honest, which is great. But then we also opt in to a lot of programs and sign up for a lot of extra work to sort of certify and have third parties lend their attestation to just how secure Neo is. So, some concrete examples. A bank account in Neo, it's CDIC insured. CDIC is the Canadian Deposit Insurance Corporation. That means if you put money in your account, doesn't matter what happens in Neo, that money is guaranteed safe by the Canadian Deposit Insurance Corporation. Getting that CDIC insurance in place is not easy to do. It takes a lot of hard work from a lot of people to go through the regulatory compliance and audits and build the right partnerships and get into the banking industry in a way that we can offer that, but that offers a lot of security to people, right? And so that's just one example. Neo, we do payment card industry, PCI compliance. We do third-party security audits against well-known standards and things like that. And we keep doing a lot of that kind of prove it to neutral third parties. And then we're starting to do a better job of marketing it. Actually, I think Wealthsimple got like SOC 2 compliance recently, and Neo also has SOC 2 compliance, and SOC 1 and SOC 2. So same for both of us. Like we're doing that to help show the industry that we're meeting the highest standards in that industry. Not everyday Canadians maybe don't know about all those standards, right? Like it helps a little bit. Something else that's helped Neo is we have provided financial services to some big, well-known, trusted companies in Canada. So I don't know if everybody knows this, but Neo powers the Hudson's Bay credit card program or like the Tim Hortons credit card program. Those are really big brands in Canada, nationwide brands with thousands of locations, and they've been around for a really long time. They're really, really mature companies, and when you go into a partnership and a business deal with a company like that, they put you under a lot of scrutiny. They dig deep. They make sure that you're legit. And if you can prove to them that you have really good technology, really good platform, really good services, you're really secure, I think Canadians do recognize that. I think they say, hey, if Neo can work with Tim Hortons, a company that size and that beloved by Canadians, then that's probably a good sign that they're not just like flash in the pan startup company that like nobody's ever heard of or something like that. So working with those partners and brands and kind of proving ourselves not just as our own brand, but as a platform for other trusted companies to use, that's definitely helping too. The last thing I'll say is there's just no substitute for time. You can't. It's just like if you're maybe dating somebody, right? If you do like speed dating or something, they don't really know you that well after the speed dating. But over time, you can get to know somebody really well and build that trust and build that relationship, and maybe eventually get engaged and then get married, right? But it takes time, and there's no rushing it unless you're on one of those TV shows like Love Is Blind. And I guess they rush it on that show. But otherwise, there's no rushing it, right? So I think a part of our philosophy too is just to keep being awesome, and time will prove out that we're a really trustworthy, secure company, have that really good track record, and have a bit of faith that it will get recognized. We'll continue to try other things too to build trust. But that's just some of the stuff that maybe helps answer your question. But I'm actually really curious, because maybe I can copy some of the things you do if you can give us some ideas.
Thank you. I think your question is also particularly focused on introduction of new technologies in the existing product, right? And so we have a very explicit product build methodology, right? And so at a very high level, there's a couple of things we do. At first, we are trying to go as quickly as we can to a play test. And the play test is really the most simplified version of the feature that we are trying to build for a very small group of people, typically only employees. And that's just really to sort of like understand the problem space, get the feel. We build it out, then we go to beta, and we scale out the number of people that can play with it, use it, and we just keep doing that until we are confident that it's acting like it's supposed to work. There are no glaring bugs or issues, right? And only then we go to market, right? And a really important value here is what we call dog fooding. So all our employees, they use the app themselves rigorously, right? Because if I like it, and if I use my own app, the product I built, if I use it every day, which I do, right? Then I'm also confident that I can recommend it to all of you. Because I use it myself, literally for everything I have. And it's not just me, but it's all the people at Wealthsimple who do it as well. So we protect your trust by this rigorous way of working with the product, improving it day by day, and we don't make crazy bets. Because I think that's a little bit the implication in your question. That I actually was wondering, are you referring to AI? Yeah, you were, right? Yeah.
AI nerd.
Right, and that's a very interesting one, right? Because well, that's a whole different topic in itself, like how to build in guardrails there, right? That's going to really take at least an hour, so I will hand the microphone back. But I think that you have to have a very strong methodology for how you build products, and you always have to remind that customer trust is the most important thing. It's very hard to get, and it's very easy to lose.
Perfect. We got a question back here. Cool. A lot of questions too, so maybe let's try and keep our answers short.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Hi, this is Ajoy. Thanks a lot for sharing your experiences. I just want to ask a question. Like, it's like simplicity is a thing for Wealthsimple, and I actually use your product and I like them very much because it helps me get started with the product itself. But I want to ask, like, how do you make the decision of whether to make additional features or make the things complex or keep the things simple? Because simplicity has cost, right? If you add advanced features, you will get more user bases or more customers that uses those advanced features. But how do you make the decision of keeping the features simple and not adding advanced ones?
I just want to make sure that I can clarify the question too, because I had some trouble understanding. Are you asking how to determine when you want to have complex and advanced features versus keeping things simple? How you make that decision?
That's a tough question. Well, the real magic is in actually simplifying the complex products, right? Because we think they have to be complex because that's what we're used to. And so we are offering more advanced features on our do-it-yourself trading platform, like for example, buying options. That's a more advanced product. But we are trying to become like so well immersed with the problem space that you can cut away the stuff that you have reached perfection and there's nothing else left to be removed, right? And so that's sort of the spirit. You have to, so it's not about if we're going to build something complex or build something simple. Regardless of what we're going to build, we're going to make it simple. Because that's what ultimately empowers people to make better decisions. So I don't think it's a trade-off like that.
Great. Over here.
I don't have the word simple in my company's name, but just a quick add. I think there's an element of iterating too. Like I wish we could predict the perfect, simple feature, perfect, simple product right from the start and then deliver that, but we can't. So there's iterating. You deliver something, then you get feedback, and then you maybe simplify it a little more, or you make it a little more complicated, and then you iterate on it. There's a question back there.
Cool. So what I was going to say, I'm very excited what you guys are building. I think it's really cool to have a nice, more modern way to do this. I've worked with the banks before as well too, so it's tech sucks and it's forever to push something out. The other side of it though, so we've had a lot of product questions. I'm interested from the business side here. You guys talked a lot about having long-term sustainable options, right? You know, other than just the big 5 banks, which means you guys eventually need to be profitable. You need to stand on your own 2 feet. You need to have capital reserves. And so to get to the question, a lot of times early on, it's easier to get the market where what's the bank ignored? But they ignore them because they're not very profitable segments. Do you guys have things that you're going after that, hey, later on, like we can get into, you know, wealth is a very profitable segment. Like cards can be a profitable segment at times there. The commercial banking's profitable because they charge all these big fees on it. Are you guys able to get into stuff that you guys can see that will make you guys long-term sustainable from a business and not rely on outside funding?
I'll start. Easy for you guys. You just announced profitability recently, right? Yeah. So I think that's definitely a huge milestone. I would say the banks definitely tell us that they need to charge some big fees to be profitable, but then they make like $1 trillion or whatever, right? So they probably don't need to be charging so much to be profitable. I think a lot of their products could be profitable and cost Canadians a lot less. So for Neo, you know, when we're building products, we're looking at the economics of the decisions we make right up front. And when we do product management, when we do scoping, when we do planning, we are building out financial models for how is this going to be a viable product, how are we going to make money off it, but also save Canadians money. It has to be like a win-win. And everything we build and put on our product roadmaps, we're prioritizing a little bit of profitability balanced with a little bit of win for the customers, right? And although Neo's not overall profitable, our average customer is profitable at Neo, and our products are all profitable products that can generate profit, but also save Canadians a lot of money. And we have the advantage of some pretty sophisticated tech that actually gives us a huge advantage in terms of just spending way less to offer the products, right? And that's one of the things we do focus on a lot at Neo is, can we build something so much more advanced that it will run like almost for free? You know, like we run something that we built and we own the IP, we own the tech, we own the software. We can run it at a fairly low cost versus banks running things that are really old, really manual, or they're heavily licensing a lot of IP and tech, and they have all this overhead. So I don't know if that answers the question, maybe it does. We really focus on low overhead. We focus on like long-term economics. We try to make every single product and feature profitable. I 100% know Neo will be profitable. You know, that's probably all I can share on that. But like we're very, I think, sustainable as a business and as a product set. And for any startup company, maybe I'll just end with this. Actually, who knows? Amazon wasn't profitable for like 20 years or something, right? Really long time. You can always just keep making investments back into yourself. You know, sort of spending a little more than you make, raising a little bit of capital to take a bet or make a new feature. You can always kind of decide to not be a profitable business by sort of spending on opportunities. And so Neo's at the stage where if we wanted to be profitable today, we could be, but we're investing a lot in the future, and that's going to only make us more successful. That makes sense.
I think there's an implicit assumption in your question that there are inherently unprofitable market segments. And I'm not quite sure that's true. And there's like 2 reasons for it, I think. Like one, we are fintechs, right? So we are using technology to have a radically different cost structure, right? And so the combination of data and technology allows us to serve customers that might not have been servable by a bank. And 2, the cost structure of banks is so different, right? They have so many employees, so many branches. So even though there's market segments that are completely profitable, but just are unattainable for them, given how monstrous big they are, right? And so this is really the promise of a fintech, to deliver products at with a mid margin to us, ultimately to our customers, all the customers. That's why we can say things like we want to help all Canadians. That's not like an exaggeration. It's like truly we mean all, because we are relying on our technology superiority.
Let's go one more question over here.
Okay, awesome. I'm short, so I have to get up. My question was that, financial models emerging, we have decentralized finance now, we've got blockchain. Do you compete with them? Do you integrate? What do you think of that?
You start, because you actually have blockchain and Bitcoin stuff, right?
We do. Well, you can buy crypto coins on the Wealthsimple platform, right? I think there's a bigger question around real-time rails in Canada, and or better put, the lack of real-time rails in Canada. And that's really an area where Canada is sorely lagging behind compared to other countries. And so I think it would be really amazing if there was more progress there. And the banks are holding it back, honestly. So if you can have like real-time settlement of money, and that would be a huge benefit to small business enterprises, right? Because they have to wait long for credit card money to show up in their bank accounts. So we are looking actively in real-time rails solutions. Blockchain is a potential one of those, but it's very still, I think, very nascent. There's a lot of questions around it. So I think we're keeping our eyes open.
I guess my take on it is, Neo and Wealthsimple, we both use a lot of technology. We build technology, we also use a lot of technology, right? So we'll use something like a cloud provider, we'll use something like a database. We don't build those things, we just use them. And I think a lot of the really modern technology, like blockchain technology, is something that we'll definitely use the same way we use a database or the same way we use, AWS or something like that. We're not developing it, but as it becomes like the best way to offer Canadians a great financial service, we will definitely be using that kind of tech. So that's kind of on the tech side, on the blockchain side. Then there's financial products like a DeFi, a decentralized like lending or something like that, right? And I think Canada is still a challenging regulatory environment. And if we couldn't feed. Yeah, if you see a lot of products like that and you dig into like where was that product launched, what company is behind it, some DeFi blockchain lending Bitcoin solution, it's probably not in Canada. You might be able to use it because you're on the internet, but it's probably not a Canadian company. It's probably not regulated in Canada. And sometimes those solutions and companies, even things like Bitcoin exchanges, they're being shut down by the Canadian government on a pretty regular basis, or being blocked or banned or things like that in Canada. And so it's important for Neo to not put our customers into a situation where we're offering them anything that's not well regulated and in compliance here in Canada. So what we want to do is work with the regulators in Canada, work with the government in Canada. We mentioned things like open banking, real-time rails. These are things that we can work with regulators and with the banking industry and the governments to improve. And as they improve their stance, and Canada as a whole kind of comes around to maybe some more modernized legislation around things like open banking or DeFi, then companies like Neo and Wealthsimple can probably be the fastest to market. Because we have that speed, we have that technology advantage, so we're going to be able to bring products like that to market one day, probably faster than someone like one of the big five.